Welcome to After Service with me, Pastor Brian and Joe, who's had a rough week, kind of a rough evening.
This evening is completely self-imposed. Yes, for the sake of context, we had recorded about 23 minutes of the podcast, and then I looked over and realized that I had not connected my microphone. And so we had some great stuff from Brian and nothing from me. Maybe. Now we get to recreate it just like we did a year ago in the early days of pre-recording the service.
Yeah.
Now, what would have happened now this is pre-recorded this week as opposed to what we've been doing lately. But if this was live, the first thing that would happen is that we would have Jesse going, "No one can hear Joe." And we would have fixed it right away.
She would have rescued us.
She would have rescued us instead of me going, "Why don't I see my microphone signal work?" Oh, man. So here we are. And we talked about what a relaxing week you had because you were doing some manual labor. Yeah.
Yeah, I scrubbed my floors and yesterday and today I sprayed the weeds, which was really relaxing. So
yeah, and bark dust later, if I recall.
And I'm going to do bark dust later. Yep.
Do you find that when you do bark dust that you just are full of slivers at the end of the day?
It depends on the kind. I've researched. If you get hemlock, evidently that doesn't have as much slivers.
So where do you get your bark dust?
I think this time there's one off of Stafford. I'm going to go there.
All right. Well, let me know how that works out. And, because we're thinking about making kind of a gravel driveway, which has nothing to do with that. But my guess is if they've got bark dust,
they have that too. Yeah.
They're going to have some gravel and we'll load it up there. So I want to acknowledge, Brian said, did you say that I had a tough week, or did you say that in the second false start?
I just said it during this. People have heard that. So,
all right.
Yeah. You've had just lots of happenings in your life. And so.
Yeah. Well, we are pre-recording because tomorrow is my daughter's 27th birthday. We're going out to celebrate that tomorrow night. Birthday. And also Vanessa had some emergent stuff on the family side, so she's hopping on a plane and heading to Texas for a period of time. So there's a lot of stuff going on. And I ordered pizza before we started. And there's a little part of me that's concerned that because we had a false start that my pizza's going to get cold. But
cold pizza's still good.
Is it?
Yes.
Okay. But it's not as good as when it's fresh out of the oven. Right. So we're still going to give people the full 30-minute episode. Okay.
All right. We got. Did you not in college order pizza and then leave it on the couch overnight and eat it for breakfast?
I didn't actually do that because I couldn't afford it. Here's what I did. I was on the forensics team, which was a speech team basically.
Right.
And so we would go and we would do these competitions for speech, and we would get a per diem. It really wasn't enough to eat for the whole trip. And I remember very specifically going to Taco Bell before Taco Bell was as cheap as it was in the early 90s. Those of you who know or even care, I ordered as much food as I could because it was so cheap. And then I just saved that food to eat for the whole trip. So,
yep. How did we not get sick?
Because of our constitution, when
you're
we were
that young. 20 years old. So,
right.
But yeah, no, I don't cold pizza's fine with me. I'll eat it straight out of the refrigerator.
Yeah, same here, especially if it's like good pizza.
Right.
Also, if you have a good air fryer or toaster oven, it's really good in there.
But yes, you're right. It's better outright fresh. You're right.
Right. So as we're transitioning into the message, I just want to say one more thing, which I did say in the first recording, which is I just want to acknowledge how much I appreciate Jan and the fact that last week I commented that we were talking about the Snyder Cut and that probably wouldn't resonate with her. And she's like, I know what the Snyder Cut is. And you commented.
Assumptions can bite us.
Yeah. And Jan is cool. Jan is very cool.
Jan is cool. She is so cool. So, yeah. Anyways.
So there's that. So coming back around to the message, Mark 5, we're continuing to talk about the man and who in Legion and all the pigs.
Yes.
And really you providing some more context geographically, and also that bit about Jesus went there to save one person.
Right. Yeah. And I was really trying to hope is the first week, and every time you preach through a section, you can always do it better. If I did it again, I think I could make it even more clear. But I wanted the first week to be about just understanding the man's condition and that God has rescued him from that. And then this week, I wanted to give a sense of Jesus's interaction with evil and what he was going up against. I almost ignored the man this time, although I did have that one comment right before. It was just one of those spur of the moment, literally right before I went up to preach. God kind of tapped me on the shoulder and said, Jesus went across the shore for the one single guy who then went off and he made a difference so that later on there would be a harvest, but Jesus went for the one guy. And so there was that. But I wanted really this time, the point of it was to focus in on the region and the assumptions that the people at the time had regarding what's going on in this story that we don't understand.
Now, wasn't there a question that we had asking for some clarification around the geography?
Yeah. So let me just try and restate it and see if this helps clarify. So Jesus is crossing the northern side, the northern part of the Sea of Galilee, going to the eastern side, and that whole area is called Bashan. The Gerasenes, where he's stopping, where he's actually getting out of the boat, is just a spot in that general region. It's like a city and a state. The state is Bashan. It's not an actual nation. It's just a general area, like Eastern Oregon. Right. Like going to Bend in Eastern Oregon. And so, but Bashan has an identity. It's bordered on the west by the Sea of Galilee, on the north by the Mount Hermon. And it's just known as a very, very dark place. In fact, it's one of the darkest, if not the darkest places in all of the Bible, is that spot. And so you likened it to
Las Vegas.
What was it? Las Vegas.
Yeah. Because, well, when you think of Las Vegas, you immediately, there's kind of a paradigm. You think of gambling, you think of seediness, you think of the strip, adult stuff, not family stuff. You immediately have a perspective on what that is. And because of the time, the apostles would obviously know that the area they're going is a similar a place that's similarly negative. Let's just use a very generic term for that.
Or generic, yes, very, very negative. And so this is just a perspective that I think for many people they don't know. And even the commentaries I've been working with didn't really bring that up. And that's because they were written before 2010. They're great commentaries, but in 2010 there came out some research that really made it clear this story, this information regarding this area that they just haven't worked with. And it has to do with the Enoch, the Book of Enoch, and some of the Baal cycle and the Ugaritic cult practices, and all of this stuff really became clear in 2010 with some new research. And it's stuff that they all knew. Just like if we were to talk about evolution and Darwinism, we all know what that is. Mm-hmm. We know what it means. I don't even have to explain it. I don't even have to even say the word evolution, but we can talk about aspects of it, and we all know that whole paradigm just comes in. And so that's what's happening here. There are pieces of what's happening in this story that if you know that background, it's obvious. It's all over the place that we just we just have never been told because this is newer information that's come out. And so I wanted to bring some of that in. And that's why that's why I was worried about people being confused, because I know for some people, even people who've been around the Bible for a long time, like I've never heard this. And so I wanted to be careful on how I said it. So
yeah,
that's why I asked for.
I think it's incredible how we continually learn more about this time. And I know I'm going to kind of step gingerly into this, but I know there are people who are very attached to specific translations of the Bible, that this is the only real one, or etc. And I don't want to go into those specific versions, but that as we have a better understanding of the history, the culture, and those things, that the Bible is alive, and we are still learning about how the stories were written, why they were written, the circumstances, and all of those. And so just because you've read the Bible a couple of times, or 7 or 12 times, or however many times you've read the Bible, doesn't mean that we're not still learning from that. And there's not, we also have mentioned in the past on episodes that there are songs that you'll listen to half your life. You've heard them hundreds of times, and there's just one time you hear it and you go, oh, wait a minute, I didn't think about it quite that way before. And all of a sudden you have this additional context, or this perspective. I think we talked about billboards. There may be a billboard that you drive past every day and you've never really noticed it. But this one day, this one circumstance, you see it and you receive it. Mm-hmm. And so our engagement with Scripture is not unlike that. And so we've learned stuff. And so I think the primary one you've been using, is it the Edwards, the commentary, the Edwards commentary?
Oh, that's one of the two. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's a great commentary, and there's nothing wrong with it. It just doesn't engage in this aspect of what's happening in the story, which is fine, because it's not, it was written in 2002. That's okay.
Right.
It's a great commentary. But like I said, there's pieces of this that just wasn't there. And some of the issues with translation is, with the advent of the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls, was it 1948 or 51, somewhere right in that area, that changed translations, because now we have copies of the Bible that are 300 years before Jesus, way earlier than we ever had before.
Right.
And so you have to account that stuff. And at the same time, the Book of Enoch was in that group. And there are parts of the world, parts of the Christendom, that says that's canon. I don't think it is, but the Ethiopian church does. And so knowing that stuff is really helpful. And the basic story is that this is the area that, as I mentioned a couple weeks ago, that this is where the angels came down and made the pact to rebel on Mount Hermon. And then what's occurring at that point is there in Genesis 6, unlike the Sethite view, which I know some people hold to that, but that, like I said, that's out of date viewpoint. The newest, the one that makes the most sense now, it fits. Anyways, I'm trying to argue it, but the point is that their understanding is that these spiritual beings had children with women, and that's what the Nephilim are, and they're very, very evil people, and they're responsible for much of what's happening in the evil. It's not evil in the world. It's not just our human heart. It's the world system, and we talk about systemic racism, for example, today.
Right. Yeah.
Right. They're the ones that help create those systems. It's not just the human heart that did that. There's influencers. We talk about influencers today. They're influencers. That's basically what they're doing, and they're fanning the flames of our broken heart. And so this area is the place of that, and this is the place where the Rephaim are, which are related to the Nephilim. And so when Jesus is coming to this place, everybody knows this story, and this is the place where, well, of course you're going to find unclean spirits, because that's where they're from. They know all of what I just said. Everybody knows this. It's like evolution. Some of it may be true, some of it may not be true, but everybody knows it. And so when they're going here, this is what they're expecting.
I don't know that anything addresses this question I'm going to ask, and so it's probably going to be conjecture on your part. I wonder what the apostles were thinking when Jesus said, "We're going here."
Right.
What their perspective was, especially when the result was saving one guy. Do you have any perspective on that? Again, I don't recall it speaking to that specifically, but.
No, it doesn't. But the only thing I can say is I think, and we can see multiple times where you get the sense that that Jesus is regularly doing things that the apostles don't understand and question why he's doing it. It doesn't make sense. We can see that earlier in the book, hey, Jesus, everybody's looking for you. Come on, let's go pray and go preach and heal a bunch of people. And he goes, nah, we're going to go somewhere else. It's like, what are you doing, Jesus? Which should say something about us and God. God's doing this, and we're like, God, you should be going there and doing that. And he's like, nah, I'm doing this.
Right. I've got another plan. Let's go over here. So one of the things, and I alluded to this on Sunday a little bit in my kind of brief response to the message, the idea of the prodigal son, and just equated, how I relate to the son that stayed behind to do good things and my resentment for. And I would say that, for a good period of my life, I would say I felt more like the son. And I would even say that I've, to a certain extent, relate to the father. And I'm trying to come to terms with the fact that maybe I need to be thinking more about what it's like to be the son that felt like he did things right and feels resentful for the other son. And and I've really thought a lot about this. Is really challenging to me, and I don't know how you'll feel about it. So I'm going to throw it out there, kind of just cause. How much do we, when we see somebody as sinful as this man, we don't even discern how evil or sinful he was, but he was consumed by demons.
Right.
Is this somebody that we in our culture currently would want to be saved? And I think we can say, of course, and yet if somebody came to your church building that was like that, how would we respond?
Yeah, I think you're right. And it's an issue, and I'll bring it up a little bit on Sunday just to magnify your question. There is a lot of little things in this story that are unclean. He's living in the tombs. That's unclean. He's a Gentile. That's unclean. There's pigs there. It's unclean. He has unclean spirits. And so there's many things in here that makes him very unappealing to the disciples. Very socially, if you want to use that word, unacceptable. And so, I think we all know as Christians that the right answer is, of course,
right.
But would we?
That to me
would we cross the ocean,
right,
for a one guy, for this guy? How many people would be happy and want to go after a crazy guy in downtown Portland?
I could see the conversation within church leadership, not necessarily our church, just the generic church.
People. You're going to drive people away.
Sorry, guys, but just generically, church leadership saying, "Hey, we're going to drive 20 hours, and we're going to go to Mexico, and we're going to talk to people." And at the end of it, we already know that there's only one person that we're going to connect with when we're there. I mean, we're going to do all this work and whatever, but there's only going to be one person. I can see the debate saying, I'm sorry, why? Aren't there better uses of our resources?
Oh, right.
Right. I mean, you would get spun into that, and then you find, like, wait a minute, what? He does what? And what? Well, I don't know. I really, it's something that I really struggle with is do we draw a line? And this is a big conversation, so we don't have to go there. But do we draw a line that says, I think they're too far gone. Let's spend our time someplace else where they're a little closer to being okay. You know, this person has done this much, and therefore I don't want to spend time there. And almost even feeling resentful that we would put energy toward that, or that one person would be saved. Would we even believe that they've been saved because they're so far gone? I mean, that's heavy stuff, but that's one of those things that I really came away with, is struggling with that topic. Are there people that we really don't want to have, we don't really think they should be saved?
I wonder, see what you think about this.
Okay.
What if we would go, what if the answer is, yes, I want them to be saved, just not by me.
Yeah, right.
You know, yes, of course they should be saved, but I don't feel called to go talk to them. Right?
Yeah.
You know, they're I mean, because they're dirty and they're offensive. They have tattoos all over them. They've got piercings. You know, they smell. I mean, whatever the answer is, they're not. And then there's the financial issue. It's not a wise use of resources, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's tough. I mean, that's another, I feel like that's kind of a sidetrack, but it is a big question. Where is the line between being, when you should step out in faith and when you should be wise? And they're often in tension. Yeah.
That's, and I've experienced both. I've been at churches where fiscal responsibility was an idol. You know, no, we can't use that for this. We are going to save it in case we need a new roof, you know,
right.
Or something like that. And I also understand there's times where, like, you again, different conversation where you're like, let's just do that. And it's completely
right.
It feels very foolish given our current circumstances. Yeah. But I think, go ahead.
No, but back to the topic.
Mm-hmm. I think there's, but I want to say, I think there are times when we're not the right person.
Well, that's true. That is definitely true. Sometimes we're not.
If you struggle with greed or you struggle with lust or whatever, there's going to be times when this is not the place for you to come in and help, because you're really not going to be effective, or you're susceptible to a particular, flavor of sin, let's say.
Right.
And I think that it's just part of my cynical nature related to our current Christian culture that says, but do we? I know that we say that these are the people we want to save, but when it comes right down to it, do you really want to? Do you really want to? And one thing I'm really grateful for about our congregation, not to toot our horns because I don't like the boasting and stuff, but I know the hearts of the people at our church, and I know they'd be like, well, let's do it.
Yeah, they would.
I know, and that's one of the things. I'm approaching 8 years now, and you just passed 8 years at Open Door, and my connection with the people and understanding of who they are, having seen hearts change in that time and people come and go, I feel really blessed to be a part of the congregation.
And I think nowadays they would be far more welcoming of the Legion guy than they would have been 8 years ago. Yeah. 8 years ago, they wouldn't have accepted him.
Yeah.
Today, I think they would. It's remarkable. It really is.
Yeah. And it's 8 years has gone very fast. And but then if you reflect on all the things that have occurred,
it's been 8 years.
Yeah. So now we're about 25 minutes in, and I'm very much thinking about pizza, and I don't want to cut things short. But do you have anything else that you wanted to bring up before you wrap up tonight?
I just think, this, because I brought up all of this stuff with the backstory and all of that, and you don't have to have that to get the point of the story, which is important to hear. The Bible can be understood without it. And so I think, though, having said that, one of the questions I think we as Christians really need to wrestle with is our general anti-supernatural bias.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think so. I think we see that as, oh, that you're primitive. You're going to be, we're accused. Well, why do you think there's an anti-supernatural bias? I know we got to get going, but I
think it's worth chatting about. Yeah.
Why do you think there's an anti-supernatural bias?
Well, we talked a little bit about this last week. At least my personal opinion is, we think we're better than that. That in a way that we similarly will reject some intellectual arguments. We also think that we have learned enough that we can reject some supernatural. We can reject existence of some of these supernatural things. Oh, well, we're beyond that,
Right.
And we're better than that.
Right. And it's worth me making it clear, if it's not, there obviously is a place for counseling, and this man needed counseling, not just during, but after. I mean, the trauma that he went through, he needs counseling. Absolutely. It's just in our modern day, we tend to not think that this aspect is there at all or ever could be there. And that's the part that's a little challenging. Or if we talk about spiritual beings outside of God, it's just get people who just, they're going to judge you as stupid Christians. And it's like, yeah, I think it's becoming more open in this society.
There's a balance point. You make me think of things like, speaking in tongues. That, can it happen? Yeah. Does it happen as much as some churches think it does? Probably not. Miracles, do they happen? Yes. Do they happen the way they happen in the Bible or the frequency? Probably not.
Probably not.
And so do
same thing.
Spiritual beings exist? Yes. Are they everywhere? Are they running rampant? I think there's a point where you say, yes, they exist, but
they're not under every rock.
Right. That balancing point, I think, is difficult for a lot of folks, especially when we live in a society that says you are here or here, and nothing is nuance. In between. Yeah. Right. Nuance is scary to people because it may call into question things that they hold strongly. Yeah.
Very few. That's why I kept trying to say things like very few people will ever actually interact directly with any of these. But will they be influenced? Yeah, indirectly through other humans who have been. Sure. We all are.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're not behind every rock, and they're not affecting every single human being. So it's just the world we live in.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Well, this has been good, and I'm glad we got to do it twice.
Yeah, it's been a nice hour, Joe.
Yeah, and thankfully my pizza place is so slow that it's probably now just ready. So it's worked out very well. God is good. Thank you, God, for Bellagio's Pizza.
Good place. Haven't had that in a while.
Yeah, it's close. Sometimes that's all that matters.
That's all that matters.
Yeah.
Well, I look forward to seeing people on Sunday as we change subjects. Pretty much. Still talking about shame. But it's not
my all-time favorites. Can't wait.
Yes.
Very much looking forward to it.
All right. We'll see you guys on Sunday.